Mr. Speaker, I yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Clyde.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the gentleman from Texas for yielding. I'm grateful that today we are considering my Congressional Review Act Joint Resolution of Disapproval, H.J. Res. 44, co-led with Congressman Richard Hudson, which would strike down the ATF's unconstitutional pistol stabilizing brace rule. Back in January, the ATF finalized this unlawful measure pertaining to firearms with stabilizing braces. Under the ATF's new rule, any pistol brace firearm would be considered an unregistered short-barreled rifle, subjecting these firearms to the draconian regulations of the National Firearms Act of 1934. The ATF informed law-abiding gun owners possessing pistols housing these stabilizing braces that they would have only 120 days to register these firearms or risk harsh NFA violations, including hefty fines of up to $250,000 and up to 10 years in prison. This 120-day amnesty registration window recently ended at midnight on May 31st. Now, we all know the end result of gun registration. It will inevitably lead to gun confiscation. So for the stabilizer brace owners who do not wish to register their firearms, the ATF provides a few very heavy-handed alternatives. Gun owners can turn in or destroy or convert or dismantle their pistol brace firearms. That means that basically ATF says you can't have it anymore. Again, if law-abiding owners refuse to comply with these ridiculous regulations, they face severe punishment, 10 years in prison and up to $250,000 fine for simply attaching a piece of plastic to their firearm, and then they become a felon for life. The regulatory saga surrounding the pistol brace is enough to make even the most seasoned lawmakers' heads spin. And it is so ridiculously big government that no American can be expected to keep up with this irrational rulemaking. Back in 2012, under the Obama administration, pistol braces were determined to be legal and fully unrestricted. This decision was then reversed 3 years later in 2015, claiming stabilizing braces were illegal to shoulder, turning pistol brace firearms into unregistered short-barreled rifles. This then changed again in 2017 when stabilizing braces were once more determined to be legal to shoulder as long as they were designed as a pistol brace. And now here we are in 2023 as the ATF is yet again vilifying pistol stabilizing braces and turning their owners into felons. Americans, including disabled veterans, are at risk of losing their right to keep and bear arms because of this ATF rule that many Americans likely do not even know exists. Now, I've heard many fear-inducing lies from my Democrat colleagues that these braces make firearms more dangerous and deadly, but that is simply not true. Stabilizing braces were originally designed to help service-disabled veterans to not just enjoy the sport of shooting, but to assist these wounded heroes in practicing their constitutional right to keep and bear arms. The brace attaches to the rear of a firearm in order to anchor the gun to the shooter's arm, allowing them to shoot one-handed. And that's exactly what you're supposed to be able to do with a pistol. Shoot one-handed, that's the definition. Millions of Americans, including service-disabled veterans, rely on these braces every day to exercise their Second Amendment freedoms and right to self-defense. Yet the Biden ATF rule criminalizes these beneficial stabilizing braces, again, turning millions of these law-abiding gun owners into criminals overnight. It's no secret that with this measure and many other forms of backdoor gun control, that the left's ultimate goal is an unarmed America. And that's what this is all about, slowly chipping away at Americans' constitutional right to keep and bear arms, but not on my watch. But this rule doesn't just infringe upon Americans' Second Amendment liberties. It represents a dangerous government overreach by the Biden administration. Congress maintains sole legislative authority, not government agencies, not the executive branch. Congress writes laws, not unelected anti-gun bureaucrats at the ATF. This is nothing more than governing by executive fiat to advance the left's desire to disarm our nation and destroy Americans' Second Amendment rights. But today, the People's House can take a stand against this unlawful overreach. I'm proud to lead the fight against this unconstitutional pistol brace rule with this critical legislation, H.J. Res. 44. And I'm proud to have my friend, Congressman Hudson, join me in co-leading this vital effort, as well as over 180 original House Republican co-sponsors. But the House must act now to save law-abiding gun owners from being unwittingly criminalized by the ATF. We must act now to defend service-disabled veterans and all Americans' Second Amendment freedoms. And we must act now to stop the Biden administration's executive overreach and tyranny in its tracks. I urge all of my colleagues, Republican and Democrat, to support H.J. Res. 44. If they fail to do so, I hope they are prepared to go home and explain to their constituents that they support the ATF's unconstitutional rule to strip service-disabled veterans of their Second Amendment rights, to go home and explain why they refuse.
Time has expired.
I will yield the gentleman an additional minute.
Thank you. To go home and explain why they refuse to take a stand against this brazen government overreach. But I trust that they instead choose to join me in voting yes on H.J. Res. 44. And I employ my colleagues to join me because by passing this legislation, we will send a resounding message to both the judicial system and the nation that we firmly reject the ATF's unconstitutional rule and executive overreach, and that we unapologetically defend service-disabled veterans' unalienable right to keep and bear arms, and that we will never back down in the right to protect all Americans' Second Amendment liberties. Thank you, and I yield back.